So, welcome grade 12s to social class. I'm excited to talk to you guys more today about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yesterday we talked about the Bay of Pigs and JFK and what he did to trigger the Cuban Missile Crisis. So today we're going to get a little bit more in depth with that, and we're going to actually draw the Cuban Missile Crisis so you guys can get a better idea of what it looks like instead of just taking some notes. So I'll get everyone to take out a piece of paper. You don't have to make this look good. Mine's not going to look good. I'm not artistic in any way, shape, or form. So this is just going to be a way for you guys to remember the important information about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And then later in our lesson today, we'll go more in depth. But just to start out, we're going to draw. So, first of all, the Cuban Missile Crisis was in 1962, like we talked about yesterday with the Bay of Pigs. So, like we know from yesterday, the USA, Cuba, and the USSR, or Russia, were the involved parties in the Cuban Missile Crisis. So, what the Cuban Missile Crisis was very simplistically, Cuba had missiles and the US wanted those missiles out. Cuba got the missiles from the Soviet Union, and that was very threatening because we know this was the Cold War. So, I'm going to try and draw not well. So, this is supposed to be Colonel Sam. Not very good. You're not Colonel Sam, Uncle Sam. And he's going to have tuxedo kind of thing. These are supposed to be his legs. Not very good. And then it's going to be an arm. Not a very good arm. Okay? So you can give him some eyes, a nice smiley face if you want to. And then you're going to draw another arm this direction. Like so. Okay? So you can label him USA, so you know that this is Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam also has striped pants, doesn't really matter, but anyway, gives you the idea. And then to depict Cuba, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a donkey. Okay, not because Cuban people are donkeys, but because donkeys are stubborn. This looks more like a horse, but that's okay. So donkeys are stubborn, and then we're going to give him a Cuban cigar. It doesn't really look like a Cuban cigar, but that's okay. He is going to have a cigar in his mouth, okay? So then we can label him Cuba. So we know that the stubborn donkey is Cuba. So what Uncle Sam is trying to do is he's trying to get Cuba to move, right? We want Cuba to make a decision. So Cuba is going to be moving from point A to point B, okay? Now point A is that the missiles are in Cuba, okay? And we want the missiles out. Running out of space. So we want missiles out of Cuba, so that's our final point, okay? So, Uncle Sam now has something in his hand. Now what does Uncle Sam have in his hand? So, he is holding a carrot. Or something like that. Okay, so he's got a carrot in one hand, and then in this hand, he has a bat, okay, with some sharp, pokey things on it. Okay. So this bat is what we are going to call our threat. Okay, and then this is going to be what we call appeasement. So appeasement is the opposite of a threat. Appeasement is good. So what we want instead of the threat. Okay, so the threat from the USA was invasion if Cuba didn't move, or a naval blockade. Okay, so they were going to stop the flow of goods into Cuba, or they were going to invade Cuba if Cuba didn't move. And then appeasement would be removal of missiles from Turkey. Now this is more of an appeasement for the USSR, because that was a threat for the Russians at the time, was that the US could bomb them. And also to not invade, which was more of an appeasement for Cuba. So ultimately, Cuba chose appeasement, and so the donkey moved to point B.